Thanks again, Agatha. Hello, everybody. My name is Sander, a data experience lead at Kirkman Company. I started my career in data about 20 years ago at Getronics, working in data warehousing, and after that moved into project management and consulting. Worked with finance data, sales data, operational data, and also quite some HR data. Now, for the last 2.5 years at Kirkman Company. Kirkman is a boutique consultancy firm with a strong focus on HR and employee experience, customer experience, sustainability, for which we got nominated to be the #1 consulting firm in the Netherlands, actually, and data. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of the propositions that we have that we are really enthusiastic about. So I'm going to talk a lot and maybe fast, but it's recorded so you can all see it back afterwards. So what is data-driven location strategy? How did we come there? Some time ago, we got into contact with one of our clients, Zeeman, which is a known retail brand in the Netherlands. And not a lot of people know actually that they are in 7 European countries and really expanding. And what we discussed with Zeeman is that for new locations, they often drive on gut feel. They go somewhere and they look at some data, but often it is gut feel to see, okay, what are the competitors here around? Do we have a good feeling here? Can we purchase or rent this location? And from there they go on. What they saw is that with driving on gut feel, that a lot of times that if an store doesn't run the actual revenue that they hope or that they expected or they forecasted, closing a store will bring a lot of loss to the organization. Opening new stores is a lot of loss for the organization, and those investments really make up a strong business case to work better with data. My grandfather always said, coincidence doesn't exist. And at the time that we discussed these kind of things with Zeeman, we also started talking to Big Data Company, an organization from Daan, Martijn, and Evert, where we know these guys from the network from Kirkman. And they have an algorithm that they actually run for a couple of years, 10 years more already, for McDonald's. Based on that, we said, okay, let's start a partnership. Let's bring the client and the solution together, and from there see what we can do. And at this moment, you see the brands here, and we are talking with a lot of other clients at this moment too. We have Zeeman up and running since 1.5 years now in 7 countries. McDonald's is live in more than 15 countries, and we recently contracted Spar, and we started rolling out in the Netherlands for Spar, and hopefully in a lot of other countries with Spar for the coming time. So really to help clients with data-driven location strategy. And what is it? What are we hoping, and what are we aiming to do for those clients? We want to bring up to 90% reliable prediction of revenue for these clients. When they open a new store, we want to be able to tell them what that store might be able to run on revenue when the store grows into maturity. So a store after a couple of years becomes a mature status, and then we will be able to predict how much revenue it will be able to run. And we do that with an automation in an intuitive platform. So we bring external data together with the internal data of the client together in a platform where they don't have to deal with algorithms, selections, business intelligence, or these kind of things. It's easy for them, and you will see it in a demo in the latest part of this presentation. It's easy for them to make choices, really focus on the business that they work with, choose a new location, see what is relevant for that location, what the characteristics of the location are, and make sure that you make the right choice. Later on, I will tell a little bit also how we do that and what we apply for that. And the most important things that are moving and changing in the market at this moment is that it was up so far, it was really interested for expansion, international expansion. We are running this in more than 20 countries. But now with COVID-19, there's a lot of things going on in retail, in the retail markets, and a lot of retailers are moving out of city centers, for example. So the optimization questions, maybe I want to close some stores, maybe I want to open some other stores, looking at where my presence is, how to spread that presence in an optimal way is really the focus where retailers are looking at this moment. And of course, it's all about data. This picture is one picture we created that we also discuss with clients. It's the internal data from the client on the left side. So we want to know as much as possible about the revenue of the stores, about where the stores are, how many employees are working there, the number of cash registers, the visitor counts, if they have that. We often see that they often also don't have it. And where the store is located, but also some quality indicators. What's the customer satisfaction? Are there sales drivers and elements around those stores that really cause the store to run well or run bad? If they can tell us that, this is the expert opinion and the experience, and this is where we drive on also. Not only the data part, but the customer experience and the experience that they have to move into the model and to work with that on the model. On the right side, the external data, we use APIs, of course, and the most important one there is drive times. We try to see, and we are always looking at the catchment area of those stores and locations. Where are people coming from? How far are people willing to drive or to move, to travel, to come to a store for our clients? And some of the big data collections that we purchased externally, points of interest. So we have all the points of interest for Western Europe, meaning bus stops, universities, schools, interesting for Zeeman, for example, schools where women and small children are walking back to their home. When they are somewhere on that route, that's really an interesting population to focus on for Zeeman. Social demo data, so per country we purchase social demo data, meaning the average age, the household sizes and the income levels of people, so we can really analyze what people are visiting the stores and where do you successfully open stores and what stores are less successful, and can you also correlate to what the surroundings of those stores are. Retail data, where applicable and possible. In the Netherlands, for example, for Spar, we apply locaties data to really look into the retail market and to see what we can derive and where we can add additional variables on that. And data and population. Really look at what's and this is something rather new, how busy it is in a certain area and what people are working there, moving there, going, and where they're coming from. Then we also look at data generation. We look at the catchment areas. If clients have that data, for example, from their Wi-Fi counters or from the store counters, we can use that, and otherwise from client cards, like Albert Heijn has with their bonus cards. And if that's not available, we ask them to do a survey at the cash register and to ask about postal codes from people, so we can really look at the catchment areas. Last but not least, data enrichment. In the Netherlands, postal codes areas are really small and really usable for good analysis on a detailed level. For example, in France or in Spain, postal codes are way too big, so we really have to purchase local data and make sure that those areas are becoming smaller, so we can do the analysis in a proper level, and otherwise it's just saying too much about a big area that doesn't apply for the client and where the client isn't able to make a proper choice. All this data is fed into the platform, and the team then starts moving in cycles from validation to optimization until we have a first model for the client, where the client starts to work with, and where the client can use this to grow into 1, 2, or 3 years into the 90% optimization towards the revenue prediction. As mentioned, we are in quite some countries already, and this is really where we have the fun with the team. Each country is different and each country is new. You see different shopper behavior between Germany and the Netherlands. You see different areas, like I mentioned already, between the size of postal codes and how we can make deeper detailed analysis in Spain and in France than as it is in the Netherlands. And working with data in this way is really something that on a European level, where we are quite far, we often think in data, it is still split and really localized, and digging that data out and getting it to work in the model is really something that the team loves to do. And we love to bring those results to clients. So short, what kind of techniques do we use? As mentioned, the expert opinion from the client is really the most important part. So what is the gut feel actually also from the client, and what do they tell us? They know from the past where their stores work or where they don't. This is the first starting point that we use, and from there we start building up with data. And the first step there is we apply statistics. We apply explorative data analysis on sales drivers. So we look at what are the variables that we can find, what are the points of interest, the social demos, what group of people in a certain age group maybe, or like mentioned, women with children is really relevant for this store or for this area, and where can the sales come from and how can we predict, so what is the correlation, but also the causality, again, coming back on the expert opinion, for this location, and how can we predict it and how can we bring it to the models. So if you look at that, this is an example of those statistical analysis. This is for one of the city types that we applied for one client. For example, you see the percentages of age group from 44 to older. That has a positive correlation. Women with children here also have a positive correlation. We look at this from a statistical level to first apply how we want to further use the data and what variables to use or not to use. Then we start to move into the econometrics. So we really look into what model to apply for clients. And in retail, you actually have two important models. The first one is a store centricity model, a multiple non-linear regression model, which actually assumes that the market size still grows the moment that a client opens a new location. The best example that everybody can place and can work with is McDonald's. If McDonald's opens a new location somewhere, it will attract new people. It will attract a new population. And it's not that the population is already going to some restaurants and they compete with other restaurants. No, the market size grows the moment McDonald's opens a new location somewhere. And another way to work with models, and this is really something that applies more to supermarkets, is client centricity modeling. And this is actually gravity modeling, and gravity modeling is derived from astronomy, which really looks at the gravity of planets towards each other. And this model assumes that the market size is actually fixed. So not like if a McDonald's opens somewhere, a new market and a new size is being opened. No, the best example here, market size is fixed, supermarket landscape in the Netherlands. The moment you open a supermarket in an area, you're directly competing with other supermarkets. And you need to attract population and people towards your supermarkets in competition with others. If you're not strong enough, then you will make less revenue than others will. So once those models have been applied and the statistics and the expert opinion are collected, then we start, as the last step, we start really to look into the machine learning part. And this is not often done in this kind of field and this kind of work in retail. What we do is we look at random forest and gradient boosting models to look at competition and relevant variables. An example there, you really see the correlation it has towards predicting revenue or not. And an interesting here is you see 5 retailers, one drugstore, but okay, 5 retailers being highlighted. And the machine learning model found that the combination of these 5 retailers were really relevant and predicting a certain impact of revenue for a certain location and store. The statistical application of these variables only found 2. So really looking at a more advanced way of looking at the data, we used that and we saw that we can help this client really with look at the location where you can find these 5 retailers. That's a combination where you want to be, and that's a combination that works strong for your type of store. Then I will open the demo. And just a disclaimer, what you will see here is the latest version. It's actually a beta still. So the platform language is in Netherlands. The demo, I recorded it yesterday, is in English. Hope you enjoy it and it speaks. You will enter the platform via a personal login. After logging in, you will enter the main screen of the tool. Here you see three areas. The middle, which is the map based on Google Maps. The left side, where the characteristics of the location will be showed. And the right side of the screen, where the revenue predictions and the scenario content will be displayed. We can use the map to zoom like any other map that you know and move over to the area that we want to focus on. In this case, we want to explore the scenario of new store locations around Alkmaar and Heer Hugo Waard. And at the same time, we want to close some existing stores to better spread our presence. After clicking on the location, we can see the characteristics of the location appear in the left panel. And the catchment area of the store becomes directly visible in the map. This catchment area is based on data from the clients that they either retrieve via technology or via a postal code survey, for example, at the cash register. On the right panel, we can now see the revenue prediction that the model gives for this location. And we can see the net revenue for this location. In the map, we have the possibility to use Google Street View. So we can explore the surroundings of the area where the store is located or where the new store should be opened. So on the left side, you can see all kinds of characteristics. These are the actual variables and success factors for the client's case. Then we come to the households and more socio-demo data points. You can see the non-overlapping households in categories of travel time. These correspond with the blue color coding in the catchment area on the map. Further, there are some socio-demographic characteristics of the location and the nearby population. One of the more interesting features of this new environment that we really like is the possibility to explore the travel time polygons. Here we focused on drive time by car, and we can see, for example, how far the catchment reach is if we think customers are willing to drive 10 minutes to our stores. Last but not least, we can see what other locations in our portfolio are matching this location and for what percentage they are overlapping. So let's create a scenario. We will call it example scenario and save it. And then we can start adding changes and actions into that scenario. So first, I will close this store here. And I want to close this store here too. Now I will add a new store opening here. Example store 1. I can enter all kinds of basics for the address and the type of city where it is located. I set the floor space to 250 square meters. The city type is a large city. Visibility is high. Quality of the team is high, of course. And then I enter the number of supermarkets in the vicinity of the store. The same for drugstores, also 1. And the number of competitors in this area is 2. We can also say something about the type of shopping area and, if applicable, we could influence the model results with some extraordinary revenue. This can be applied for outlier locations, like, for example, touristic areas or areas where clients cross country borders to go shop for specific items. Then we save the new store and it is showed with an asterisk on the map. We do the same for our other opening, example store 2. And we save it. Now we have all our input for the scenario complete. 2 openings and 2 closures. And we can let the model calculate what the results and impact of this combined scenario is. It will calculate, and once it is finished, we can click on the locations to see the predictions of the scenario. The first closure will cause a loss of 370,000 euros. If we click on the new opening, we see that the model predicts that this store will potentially be able to add 386,000 euros of revenue, and we directly see the catchment area for this store. We can also switch the catchment area view to only see the impact on other catchment areas, which for this store is not applicable, all new, all green. But if we click on the existing location, we directly see the impact in catchment area of our scenario actions. There's an extension of the current catchment area, shown in green, based on the closure of the location that is on the upper right of this store.
but also a negative impact in red because of the new opening close by. We can see the characteristics of the postal codes to further examine the socio-demo and type of population in this postal code. On the map, the boundaries of the postal code are shown, and in the right panel, we see the data of this postal code. And to gain complete insight in the combined impact of the scenario, there's a report that you can print or save as PDF. In this report, all the changes and impacted locations are visible in one overview. In this case, the total result of the scenario is a negative 127,000 euros, so it's not a good idea to pursue these closures and openings. Once the analysis of the scenario is complete, you can easily switch back to the default view to view your current portfolio without any impact of calculations that you made. This is it for the demo. We will now log out.
So, hope that gave a view and a picture. It's a lot of information probably. Maybe back to Agatha and Tim for any questions.
All right. Yes, thanks very much, Sander, for your presentation and demo. Great presentation. It's very, very insightful. Okay, sorry, I was getting some requests from the sidelines. I think I'm still online.
Side questions.
Yeah, some side questions. Yeah, so very insightful. Thanks for sharing the data that you used, specifically the models, and also giving us a small demo. I've received some questions here from the sideline, as you already heard there, as well as some in the comment section. So let's start off with a from the comment section. So I think it's more related to the data privacy aspect of actually using data in these models for data-driven location selection. So let me repeat the question from the chat. It's from Mesrat. Can you share your challenges that it comes to different regulatory constraints and restrictions on obtaining and use of data, specifically within the EU? But I think as you're working with companies who are global, there might be different regulations over the globe.
Yeah, we always prevent that we don't use privacy-related data. And the closest that we get there, so per country we pursue or we purchase the social demo data, and there's never an individual level of data, so it only brings around grids of postal codes, what the average household size is and what the average income levels are there. So it will never touch based on the privacy detail level of data. There are some parts of, for example, population data, where we are working now with an innovative part of data where we can see how dense the population is at a certain time of the day and a certain day of the week in an area, grids from 100 by 100 meters. But the moment that the number of people there are less than 10, it will not show the number. So again, here it's prevented, and of course, in stores where we ask the postal codes of clients, we will never register from what client, and it's anonymized, so it's kept general.
Yeah, and so for personal data, it's anonymized, and for data that is personal, you're aggregating data on a level that's still relevant but doesn't reveal anything too personal.
Yeah, we actually never get any level of data on a personal level, so it's always already on a higher aggregation than when we get it.
If I can make one suggestion, last week at our event we had Sinto here, and they actually anonymize data with neural networks. They make synthetic data from personal data. So it might be interesting to have a look at what they built.
I was there and I saved the presentation.
Oh, well, yeah, great. Well, that's I think something you can look at.
Yeah.
So one question that I got here from the people who are sitting here is, so you looked at different data sources from external and internal data using APIs as well. Do you see what the contribution is between data that is real time and the data that's historic? So you mentioned they're going up to within a couple of years or within a certain time frame to 90% accurate revenue prediction. Is that a big contribution from real-time data or more from historic data?
No, it's a combination, and often it is really important that we have the right number of stores and the right number of years in historical data from clients to come up with that model. Because low numbers of stores and low levels of history from shops, it's really tough to start large predictions on. Real-time data is not something that is really applicable in this area yet. Maybe it will become in the near future. With SPAR together, we start to dive into not only to look at location prediction, so revenue prediction on a location, but also move into the category management. So not only the location, but what types of categories might be interesting in this area. And from there, you can go deeper into products. And from products, you can go to time, lunch, dinner, and these kind of things. But that's a couple of steps away yet. So it's not about real-time location yet, or real-time data yet, but mainly about the combination of all those data points.
Okay. So continuing on that question, so maybe it's not real-time data, but still data that is continuously or over time captured from people in the real world. So I completely see the value here, but I can also imagine there's some value for using that data that you have from the real world in a digital environment. So, for instance, for a company that has a retail store but also has a web shop. Yeah. Do you see that there's an integration already? What's the level of adoption with integrating retail data for e-commerce purposes?
Yeah, well, especially now with COVID-19, you see a lot of movements from retail and from shops and brick and mortar shops into e-commerce. So splitting revenue from e-commerce towards shops. I mean, it's a competition within companies often, or sometimes seen as that. And also to connect clients. So what client is purchasing online and what client is coming to the store, and are they the same client? Where are they coming from, and why are they purchasing one time here or one time there? But so these are interesting movements and also what we're looking at. And at the same time, we are talking, for example, to one of the big payment providers in the world, and looking at, can you use data from payment providers? And this is something that we're really keen on from a privacy level. So we're not doing anything with it yet, but exploring the ideas to see, okay, can you then have a further view into your customers or where they're coming from and where they are going? Yeah. So yeah, the e-commerce connection, this is really, the proposition is really focusing on brick and mortar stores and the locations, location. But e-commerce is really something that is getting connected.
Yeah, but it's a bit further in the future. So there's still some steps for adoption to actually reap the real value from brick and mortar to e-commerce.
Because you're already also in e-commerce, you know directly a lot from the clients because they enter that data when they make a purchase.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, then there's a good question from Manos Mark in the comment section. So how do you ensure that the purchase is correct, and so that the data that you purchase, that is mostly historical, because otherwise, unless it's connected to an API, that you continuously get data bin, but mostly it's historical. And how do you adjust the historic data for instance, events that are like black swans, like now with COVID, for instance, so something that we can predict?
Well, this is really something that we are keen on into looking. We purchase the data, for example, from points of interest and from social demo from countries, but when there are big developments in countries, so for example, new living areas are being, or new real estate is being built, and a lot of people start living in a certain area for certain. We discuss this with clients, and we look together with our data providers. So we work with a couple of data providers that we purchase this data from, and they help us and they signal us when they say, hey, there's quite an update in France in a certain area, or there's quite an update in Spain in a certain point of interest data. So those purchases and those data points are being purchased and updated when we see the relevance. So we don't just blindly update them each half year or each quarter, but we do it when it's relevant. And this is something also we discuss with clients, because you can always add more data, but there's a price tag to that too. And we try really to balance between the price and just dumping in more data for a high price. Clients also say, at a certain level, enough is enough. And I think we can handle with this. And maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, when we are at 90% prediction rate, maybe we want to go further, but we'll see it then.
Yeah. How far are you now in prediction rate? Or does it?
In some countries, we are above 85%.
Okay.
We really reached the 90% almost at some countries. And it's really, really nice because the last few percents are often the toughest. But this is really where the team goes and has a lot of fun and challenges. Because to look, okay, what are the variables? So really tweaking the algorithms and looking further and going deeper to see where we can add things.
All right. So I see also some more technical questions, but I think those we can answer after this event, either in the comment section of the event or in a later stage, or maybe even in a podcast. I think these are more technical questions, and there are also a lot of questions here, but unfortunately we have limited time. I want to thank you very much for your presentation, Sander, and your insights. We'll probably hear more from you either in a podcast or in spoken or written word in comments and responses to people who have questions.
Definitely.
Thank you very much.